On 28 February 2020, the DBE will host a roundtable discussion with the theme Home Education in the Best Interest of the Learner. This discussion is a ministerial initiative geared towards strengthening the collaboration between social partners and other key players to ensure that the policy on home education is implemented effectively and efficiently. Joining me on the lounge is Doubell from the Eastern Cape Home Education Association, Marinda Erwee from the KZN Home Education Association, and Peter Reynolds, a home education parent and activist. Elijah Mklanga of the DBE is unable to join the discussion, and we did not receive feedback on our questions in time for this recording. Philip, when did you receive an invitation to attend the roundtable discussion?
Well, that was a nice Valentine's gift for us on the 14th of February 2020.
Were you initially invited, or did you have to request an invitation?
We had to request an invitation. I was notified by some of our homeschooling partners about this session, that roundtable, and immediately after we discussed it, we forwarded a mail to the relevant people who invited them, and we requested our attending the session as well.
Were yours the only association that did not receive an invitation?
I'm not 100% sure. I think from the communication it was most of the people who didn't receive. I think about 60-70% of the people requested for invite to the session. The reason for it I don't understand, but I think we will collaborate on that issue a little bit later, Anelle.
Home education associations and many of their members are unhappy with the policy on home education. Why is that?
There's been a lack of meaningful public consultation. So over the years, the DBE has not really had adequate consultation with home education communities. It's ignored the views of homeschooling families. It's only really considered inputs from its own internal structures and its consorts in the curriculum publishing and distribution industry. And flowing from that, they have now released a home education policy that unfairly discriminates against home educating families, and it violates their constitutional rights. There are excessive requirements for registration, monitoring, assessments, and reporting and record keeping within that policy that burdens home educating families with onerous regulations and both administrative and unnecessary costs. There are provisions both in the home education policy and especially in the latest version of the final version of the draft Bella bill that provide for home visits of officials to homes of home educating families to check various things. It violates the right to privacy in Section 14 of the Constitution, and this impedes parents in the exercising of their right to educate their own children. Again, unfair discrimination. It unreasonably restricts learners in their choice of alternative curricula and alternative school leaving certifications. It's quite an odd policy. In the case, it makes it very difficult for certain learners to follow non-national senior certificate routes, but doesn't care if they just drop out of school at the end of grade 10. The policy narrowly views home education as merely an alternative delivery mechanism for public education. In other words, school at home. It's urged to bureaucratize the processes for registration and approval, basically turn the right to education, which is guaranteed in the Constitution, into a privilege to those who can jump through the hoops at the whims of whatever officials may put there for the parents. So yeah, all in all, a policy that home educating families are not happy with. It's one size fits all, places unnecessary restrictions. And interesting, the research that was conducted in the United States by the National Home Education Research Institute, NHERI, they indicated whatever the extent, and they looked at different regulations in different states in the US, and some regulate more than others. Others, it's just simple notification. And in other states, it's assessments and approvals of curriculums and that. And the findings of this research indicates that whatever the regulation is, it does not impact the success of home education. So in other words, the state regulation of home education proves to be autotelic. In other words, just self-serving and of no benefit to the citizens of the country, and it's therefore a gratuitous waste of taxpayers' money.
A key objective of the meeting is to, and I quote, engage role players in a robust discussion around the respective roles and responsibilities of the parent and the state concerning a child's education. Marinda, what do you wish to contribute to this discussion?
If we look at the role of the state and the parents, then we firstly have to look at what is in the best interest of every child. And a prerequisite is exploring how they develop and unfold. So a child develops in sequence, firstly physically, emotionally, socially, then intellectually. Looking at the role of both the state and the parents, it is important to keep their developmental phases in mind, as well as keeping things age and ability appropriate. So a child learns mainly with real life hands-on experiences. The 80-20 principle comes into play. 80% physical, 20% symbolic, learning in the first years, and a gradual switch of those by the age of 9. That's in a perfect world. The reality is that kids these days just need much more time to develop and grow to their potential. The parent knows this best about their own individual child. There is much more that impacts on a child's ability to learn. The parent, caregiver, and tutor, if they are there, is better able and equipped to give the child the correct environment in which they are better able to learn and achieve. If we are keeping the role of the parents and the state, as well as what is in the best interest of the child at heart, then we also need to keep all the above in mind when we are doing assessments. So from our perspective, and with our chatting to our community's parents, we were chatting about that formalized testing and assessments are seldom a true reflection of a child's potential. It's often just a reflection of how they cope under stress. And that is exactly why countries like Finland have moved away from formalized testing and are moving more toward facilitated learning and freedom and according to the interests of each individual child. A parent works daily with their child. They know where they are and where the gaps lie, and they are better able to intervene early on and remediate problems as they may arise. If assessment does come into play, it could perhaps take the form of a portfolio of evidence of what the child has achieved over a phase. The state, unfortunately, is not always privy to the unique situation of each child, nor the many educational philosophies and curricula that home education embraces. But there are able people within our home education community that most certainly would be able to assist with the needs of a family should they elect that. Some local homeschool associations are currently putting measures in place to assist families in different areas as they require. We are blessed and privileged to experience the turnabout of education worldwide, and learning is becoming more skills-driven, free, and exploratory. With knowledge at our fingertips with the push of a button, the world literally is our children's oyster. With programs such as Education for All, children truly have every subject, topic, and resource at their fingertips for free. Home education embraces a variety of philosophies that truly hone in on the best interest of each individual child. I'm not propagating no regulation. I'm not propagating regulation either, but within our home education community, we have many parents who are able to assist and spearhead programs to assist families, the state, and even the DBE. Let's build a bridge of synergy and collaboration between home educators and the DBE to assist and help relieve pressures faced on either side. It is doable, and we are willing. If we look at record keeping and planning, this should reflect the experiences the child has had, whether it be in the form of formal planning, diary entries, photos, whatever that form may take. Let's not swamp parents with so much unnecessary paperwork that there's no time for liberty in the educational journey. Keeping in mind what the outcome is and working top down, many parents follow a mastery approach, allowing their kids to master skills rather than regurgitate information for purposes of testing. Many experiences are life and skills based and cannot always be recorded on a piece of paper. Success is not always about getting things right the first time. It's about making mistakes, being okay with that, and getting up and starting again. Life and worth is about self-growth. The parents are facilitators on the journey of learning, where fresh eyes are brought in as needed. I cannot help my child with physics and maths, so that's where a tutor may come into play, someone with expertise in the field. The majority of home educating families make every effort to afford their kids the opportunity to achieve. Let's see by show of hands who does not want their child to be a successful and contributing citizen in society. I doubt any hands will be raised. Most parents will do everything in their power to help their kids achieve. There is no one size fits all to life, and there shouldn't be to education either. When you chat to most home educating families about the topic of registration, one of the first things they say is that they do not want to have to ask permission to home educate. They want to register with the liberty that they are notifying the state DBE of their intent to home educate with the best interest of their child in mind. After all, they were good enough to choose housing, food, medical care, and every other need their child had in the first 7 years of its life. The way an individual may interpret policy or a question is different. Surely this will be a mammoth task for the state, who is made up of diverse and different individuals. It makes it difficult to evaluate what is in the best interest of a child if they do not personally know that child. Even teachers know the children they evaluate. In the home education community, we have parents, educators, and key people in areas that can be a help or the fresh eyes that a child or a family may need. We are more than capable of assisting the state by providing a bridge, link, and collaboration on their behalf within our own community and from our own community. Not in a manner of control, but rather in a supportive fashion and a listening ear, assisting each family with guidance as they require it. Parents are still continuously providing for their children. Let them continue in freedom to provide the best education for their child as well. And that is what we would like to bring to the table.
Philip and Peter, would you like to add anything to what Marinda said?
I think the importance is that I think there is a disjunction between state and home educators at this stage because of the understanding of what is homeschooling. I think for those who were privy to be at the African home education in Doubell in Pretoria a couple of months ago, will understand that there was very frank discussions and open discussions about how can we start looking at how can we bring all these things together, how can we bring more synergy, as Marinda so beautifully said, because the synergy part is, I just think there's a lack of understanding from DBE on what we are really doing. And the fact of the matter is we do not have anything that we can present to them to say to them this is fact. Most of our parents are, well, like I said at the session, we're like submarines. We disappear into the woodworks and we think if I hide, nobody's going to see me and I'm going to be fine. And I had to remind the people in our discussion, Peter, you were part of that discussion, when we're discussing the specific, and Mike Donnelly so beautifully wrapped it up and he said, liberty has a huge price to be paid, and that is for you to submerge. We have to come up. We have to focus. If we really want to speak for homeschoolers, and can you understand that, let's say we do have 150,000 children being homeschooled, and I can bet you there's more, because that's just a thumbs up. Let's say there's 150,000. Can you imagine how do you deal with 150,000 institutions? Because literally every single home is an institution. So that is why the importance of this homeschooling association becomes so pivotal in how we can set up governance so that we can control what happens. I'm 100% with Peter when he said, any person coming into my house, it will not happen. So to stir a fight about something that we already know, that we are going to, and I'm not even going to entertain that. I'm not even going to go there. I think the most important thing is that we as vocal, verbatim, homeschooling parents who are in these associations need to start to stand up We need to get more into our local newspapers. We need to say more. We need to become more aggressive about things. We need to show our faces out there and not be ashamed. Because I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed being a homeschool dad. I'm very proud of my daughters. They are doing so well. Just to bring it back into context, what you've discussed, Marinda, is that I think the important thing is that we just need to be in their face. We need to stand up and say, guys, here we are. And I think the most difficult thing about the round table, and we need to understand the round table thing is not a new thing. What we called in the past, because I've been in government for the last 30 years, we almost called it knowledge cafes. There's always been different words for it. This is just another one where you go and you break down into commissions. Commissions go and they deliberate on certain topics and they come back. It's very clear that Department of Education, and they start off in the document, they need to define their strategy for homeschooling. It's as if they say, it's like maybe we missed it. Maybe we've missed something on a strategic level. How can we bring this? Because the parents are becoming very verbatim now, and they're becoming very loud, and they're becoming a little bit obnoxious now even, because it's our children. I've never seen people that can fight like parents. The tiger in me just wakes up. So I think let's look at the 28th as this knowledge cafe where we need to throw so much information towards DBE that they realize that it's not one morning we become, I think homeschooling is a good idea. But it was a well thought out process. It was something that I decided, and being the analytical person I am, I had to go and sit with people like Marty who tell me, listen, you need to get more involved in your child's life. You don't know what you're talking about. And you feel you don't know what to do with yourself. And then you realize, today I'm a much better father thanks to homeschooling. So homeschooling, I'm an advocate for it.
Great. Thank you very much, Philip.
Snap.
Peter, what would you like to bring to the discussion, the robust discussion on the parent and the state's role?
What Philip was speaking earlier about, the African home education, home educators in Doubell last year in October, we had a lot of discussions around the building of local communities, and I think this is the key. I think part of the problem with the understanding of what home education is, it's not only a lack of understanding on the part of the Department of Basic Education, but a lot of outsiders, a lot of academics who only understand education in the context of a classroom, the kind of education delivery mechanism that's only really been around in large parts since the 1840s, really less than 200 years old, and for time ever since that, ever since the beginning of time, home education has really been the main thing. A lot of people cannot get their heads around how this can be done other than their pedagogical system with formal curriculums, assessment, and all that sort of thing. So I think perhaps we need to do a lot of work in documenting what we do, in showing people how we do it and how we achieve it, that the assessments that we do are not necessarily on the basis of formal standardized tests, which really only satisfy the needs of politicians, but of ongoing one-on-one assessment when you can genuinely see what the child has acquired in terms of their knowledge and how they've consolidated that knowledge. So I think definitely building our local structures, documenting what we do, especially in video material, so they can see how it's done, so they can get their heads around it and understand how home education works, and it's not just distance education. The other thing is local structures and the accountability. And there we cannot rely on the state to hold us accountable. It is our right to educate that's guaranteed in the Constitution. It's not the state's right to educate. And so we need to be a lot more proactive and vigilant in building those local communities so that we have people that we are accountable to, other parents that where we are facing challenges or we need advice, we've got support networks of people that we go to. Many of us are members of local churches, and those are accountability structures other than the highly costly and bureaucratic regulatory processes that the state wants to put in place. Let's build alternatives in place that will meet that need and that will render the need for state regulation sort of redundant and obsolete, adding no value. And let's be able to prove that we have structures in place, that parents are accountable to each other in the community and to organizations, homegrown, voluntary, free associations.
I like that. Philip, another key objective of the meeting is to strengthen collaboration amongst parents, departments, institutions, independent curriculum providers, and other role players in home education. Do you think this is possible?
Most definitely it is. I really believe numbers speak so loud. When you start speaking numbers to politicians and government officials, immediately you must understand the whole thing goes, oh my goodness, voters. Immediately their mind goes, these are taxpayers. And I think what is important is as soon as we start strengthening our social circles within the area, for example, of us at EXA, we get more registered parents that comes up out of the woodwork, and they start getting registered and becoming more verbatim. And I must say, in the last couple of weeks, within EXA, we have just started changing the drive and the discussion, and not anymore so much socially, but listen, guys, the fact of the matter is, if you do not talk to them, they will just do it. I had the slogan for a while where I said, don't talk about us, talk to us. That is a very good idea. But the problem is, who do they talk to if they don't know who? Except if they have to do it now with 110,000 parents, which is a difficult point. That is our biggest issue lies within. How does government and sectoral departments or institutions, parastatals or not, how do they get to us? If we do not have very strong homeschooling associations or a body of people that will govern the sector in such a way. And when I speak govern, I'm not talking governance structures as a hierarchy. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about representatives. When it comes to state, when the state wants to engage us, who do they engage? I can imagine when they started writing the new homeschooling policy, and I said, all right, who do we invite? Do we invite all 10,000 people that's registered at education? And that's going to be a very difficult meeting to host, I know. If you can just imagine that. So I really believe that as soon as we, as homeschoolers, and what we do is voluntary, but it's something that we do with a lot of passion, because we know if we can continue speaking to the people and give them the information, there's so much more that they can do. I also believe that it's important that education gets to the point where they realize that there's a huge disjunction between what's education and what is social. We're trying to bring the whole education thing these days is like, we need to protect the children from violence. No, that's not education. No, that's social and crime activities. That's a total different topic. Every single time I speak to somebody, I have to hear about, but what about the children that are being ill-treated at home while they're being homeschooled? And I go, no, that's not education. That's a social issue. That is a South African police service issue. If a child at a school go to a teacher and says, ma'am, I got raped by X, what can that teacher do? What can DBE do? They can phone the police, or they can phone a social worker. Now that's exactly coming in line with what you said, Peter. We have accountability structures. we've got churches, we've got associations, we've got all these structures that can look at the ethos of this association and make sure that it is a healthy oikos, because that is what it's all about. I'm 100%, listen, if it comes to the safety of my children, I'm 100%, tell me where to meet, what psychologist, I'll drop them off. They'll be pretty fine. Believe me, much better off than the poor children that goes to other places. So I'm fine with that. My thing is, the importance for me is this. We must split the mindset from education that they are the Department of Social Services. We need to split the mindset of DBE that they are the South African Police Services. They are just, in the case of children, they are the first ones maybe to see the marks on the children and those type of things, and that is why they will bring it out into the open. But in my view, that's not the purpose of school. Education is there to educate. You see the difference with our education. I can educate and prepare socially and prepare mentally and prepare and prepare. They can't do that, not at a school. They can't, but they don't have the capacity. So is collaboration, can it be done? What we have done is we have registered a NPO. We have met with the MEC from the Eastern Cape. We had a very frank and open discussion with him regarding homeschooling and who we are, what we are. And I must say it has gone slower. I've been with them a couple of times after our first engagement session, because I really want them to know that we're serious about this. And I think they're also realizing that they have to talk to us. And with also we had a meeting with the attorney from DBE, having a very frank discussion with him, what our stance is, what we believe is wrong and right. And I must say we had very good engagement. And they were, I think the attorney was flabbergasted about the structures that we already have. So collaboration can happen, but can you imagine we go to Peter, Marinda, we go now to Roundtable, and we say, good day, DG. Here we are. I'm Philip Doubell from EXA. How many members do you have? 5. That's the end of the discussion. I'm useless. Because where's the numbers? Because if I go there, and I know we've got, because formally I've got registered about 60 people, but informally I've got 600 people that are communicating. Nobody wants to put their name on a piece of paper. Now I'm saying to everybody, guys, put your name on a piece of paper. Or you're going to put your name on a piece of paper with us, or they're going to put your name on a piece of paper in a summons. One of the two.
Stand up and be counted.
Yeah, liberty comes at a price, people. And the price that we need to pay is, please emerge.
I just want to ask Marinda, is there anything you would like to say in closing? 2 minutes max.
I think Peter and Philip have really actually said it all. I think our hearts are all on the same page. Our minds are pretty much on the same page. And even though, you know, this is a process and these are seeds that are being planted, especially like on the 28th, I'm trusting that this is the beginning of great things to come for our home education community in the country.
Thank you all. A key thing for me is, yes, as Peter and Philip said, stand up and be counted. Join your associations, be vocal and verbal. And I wish you all the best at the meeting, and I hope to have a debrief with you soon afterwards.